참석하신 분들이 외국 분들이 기 때문에 물론 YoonDae 총장님도 계십니다만은 편의상 제가 영어로 사회를 하도록 하겠습니다. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to begin by saying that it is indeed my great privilege to participate in this very important forum with other distinguished participants. I would like to thank organizers of this very important forum for inviting me. This session is about creating a global talent pool from higher education perspectives. Today we all live in the age of globalized, knowledge-based economy. And it is needless to say, therefore, that in this era, the most critical factor driving a society toward continued prosperity is human resources, embodying knowledge and skills. Consequently, the importance of education, especially higher education, cannot be overemphasized. This afternoon, we are very fortunate to have three presidents of globally leading universities to share their enlightening views with us on this very particular issue. Since three panelists showed biodata are included in the program, I don't think I will waste any time in reading all those long, outstanding list of their career achievements. I just want to highlight their current position and only maybe one or 2 points in their long list of achievement in their biodata. The first panelist we have is Dr. Martha Piper, who served as the president and the vice chancellor of the University of British Columbia, UBC in short, one of the, as you know, the Canada's largest and the most prestigious research universities. Dr. Piper also, I know that served Canadian government in consulting the government's educational policies by participating in various committees and councils. And for all those works, Dr. Piper was named as Educator of the Year by Learning Partnership in year 2004. And then we have President John Robert Pitte, who is the president of University of Paris, number 4, which is Sorbonne University. President Pitte has served as the vice president of that Sorbonne University before he took the current post. And also, he consulted and advised French government on the very subject of education policies while he was teaching at the Sorbonne University. And then we have Dr. YoonDae, who is the president of Korea University. Before he became the president of the university, he served as the dean of Graduate School of Business Administration, and also many other served the Korea University in various capacities, along with his teaching duties. He also serves Korean government in his consultative capacities by participating in various committees and councils, and he is very active in advising the government. At the same time, he sits on various boards of both public and private corporations. With this very short introduction, since we have limited time, I would like to invite first panelist to give her 15 minutes to make her initial remarks. Actually, I will ask all three panelists to limit their first initial remarks in 15 minutes each, and then they will have about another 10 to 15 minutes for their interactions among themselves, and then I will invite questions and comments from the floor for another 10 to 15 minutes. So we'll have to end here at the 4 o'clock sharp. So let's try to keep the time, please.
Thank you very much. It's a real honor to be here at the Global Human Resource Forum, and I want to thank the organizers for inviting me to this forum. There was a nice phrase in the recent Economist magazine, a reference to the forces of globalization, and this is the phrase: the death of distance. The internet, the ease of international travel, the fleet-footedness of international capital, all these have made the world a much smaller place. But the death of distance rings with much more truth when you are closeted in an office, surfing the globe on your computer, than it does when you are on a flight from Vancouver to Seoul. Distance, I would say, has lost much of its influence, but the report of its death, even in a source as credible as The Economist, I think is still premature. I actually believe whoever figures out how to cure jet lag will be a multi-millionaire. Speaking of distance, last year I visited Singapore and had the privilege of meeting Lee Kuan Yew, Minister Mentor of Singapore and the well-known father of the modern Singapore of today. It was a 90-minute question and answer session that was attended by about 50 university presidents from around the world. Upon reflection, it was one of those once-in-a-lifetime experiences. It was very clear that we were in the presence of a global visionary, an individual who understands the importance of developing global talent in order to thrive in the increasingly competitive environment we find ourselves in today. What I would like to share with you today is one of the interesting observations Mr. Lee made, an observation that I believe has particular relevance to today's conference. When asked what he would advise his grandson to study in order to prepare for the competitive of the next several decades, Mr. Lee answered something like this: given the changing global context that includes the rise of India and China, the linkage of prosperity with innovation, and the cultural conflict present in today's world, I think my grandson should concentrate his studies in 3 areas. First, languages. Obviously English, he hoped he would be able to speak Malay, but also most importantly Mandarin and Punjabi. 2, he wanted his grandson to be literate in science and technology, not necessarily be a scientist, but understand science and technology. And 3, most important, he felt his grandson needed to understand multicultures and religious studies. Now, what does this conversation with a world leader have to do with cultivating global talent? Well, in my mind, Mr. Lee's list of 3 areas of expertise succinctly describes the educational challenge for global universities in the 21st century. His list clearly recognizes the need to be technologically savvy and scientifically literate. He understands the important role universities must play in educating individuals who can compete in an increasing technologically and scientifically sophisticated world. But, and this is a big but, Mr. Lee also clearly understands that expertise in science and technology by itself is not enough to prepare students for the 21st century. By highlighting language requirements and cultural sensitivity, Mr. Lee has expanded considerably the challenge for today's global universities. For example, how many of our universities have adequate language departments and/or language requirements for graduation? How many of our universities have depth and breadth in cultural and religious studies? How many of our institutions have invested resources in our humanities and language departments to the same degree as we have in our natural sciences and engineering programs? In short, how well are we doing in educating students to be global citizens? It is clear that if we are to live in one world, one small, interconnected world, universities must assume their role in educating global citizens. That is, citizens who, in addition to being able to compete scientifically and economically, will also understand the world in which we live and ensure the survival of a civil society, a society in which all individuals, regardless of race, ethnicity, intellectual ability, or religious beliefs, can express themselves without fear, exercise their individual human rights, and live in healthy, safe, respectful, and economically strong and trusting communities. What then constitutes a global citizen? How does a university in the 21st century assist in educating such individuals? These are the questions I'd like to explore this afternoon. Global citizens, lest we think we are embarking on something novel, I am reminded of the Greek philosopher Diogenes, who, when asked where he came from, replied, "I am a citizen of the world." He meant by this that he refused to be defined simply by his local origins and group memberships. He insisted on defining himself in terms of more universal aspirations and concerns. And the Stoics, who followed his lead, developed his image of the cosmopolites, or world citizens, arguing that each of us dwells, in effect, in 2 communities, the local community of our birth and the broader community of human argument and aspiration. It's these 2 communities coming together within an individual that I believe constitutes global citizenship. In other words, you don't need to give up our special affiliations and identities, whether national, ethnic, or religious, but we do need to work to make all human beings part of our community of dialogue and concern. Our goal, therefore, must be to educate future global citizens who see themselves not simply as citizens of a local region, but also as human beings bound to all other human beings by ties of concern and understanding. If this is the case, how do universities educate global citizens, and how do we structure our curriculums and learning environments to foster global literacy and citizenship? Thomas Friedman, in his best-selling book, The Lexus and the Olive Tree, makes the compelling case, I believe, for the components of a global education. He argues that to understand global issues, it is essential to be able to synthesize knowledge from a variety of perspectives. He notes that the boundaries between 6 disciplines, politics, culture, technology, finance, national security, and environmental ecology, are disappearing, and suggests that you can neither understand one discipline without referring to the others, nor explain the whole without the reference to them all. Friedman equates it to putting on glasses and seeing the world in 3D, or 6 dimensions, if you like. To be globally literate, you have to learn how to synthesize information from each of these perspectives and then weave it all together to produce a picture of the world that you would never have if you looked at it from a singular point of view. It's clear, in a world where we are all so much more interconnected, the ability to read those connections, to connect the dots, is the real value provided by an education. If we don't teach our students to see the connections, we will not teach them to see the world. Teaching them to see the connections, this clearly means that the learning environment of the 21st century must go beyond the teaching of a narrow area or field of expertise. Clearly, the world in which we live is not divided up into neat little boxes of knowledge. Rather, the contemporary world is such that the boundaries between domestic, international, political, technological, environmental, and financial affairs are all collapsing. In the 20th century, university graduates could get away with thinking that their specific area of concern, whether it be a health profession in a local hospital or a financial analyst for a national bank or an engineer for a regional technology firm, would be finite and would get them through. But today, the practice is the planet Earth, and the global integration of science, technology, finance, trade, and information is occurring in a way that is influencing wages, interest rates, living standards, culture, job opportunities, wars, weather, natural resources, and health all over the world. Universities must continue to excel in the individual disciplines and educate students to be experts in their chosen field, but this is no longer enough. They must also expose students to the complexity of integrating knowledge across disciplines and equip them to think more broadly about their actions in terms of global issues and concerns. Barry Mcbride, our previous provost, recently offered a nice example of how that might work, or more specifically, how it hasn't been working in the university classroom. He is a microbiologist who spent his entire academic career, over 40 years, trying to get students excited about things like the bacteria of Salmonella. But in all of his classes, in almost 4 decades of talking about Salmonella, never once did he draw a connection between what was happening in the Petri dish and the little boy in Guatemala who, for lack of a safe water source, was going to die from diarrhea. That's got to change. Anyone who's read the bestseller Reading Lolita in Tehran by Azar Nafisi can begin to imagine how, even with the teaching of Pride and Prejudice or the novels of Henry James, one can stimulate students to think globally. All of this is to say that global universities in the 21st century must not only lead in science and technology, but must also educate citizens who understand the connections of knowledge. Is this a big job? Of course. But universities over the centuries have always led societal change, and the 21st century will be no different. Back to The Economist, again, who puts forth the rationale for this kind of approach. It notes that world-class universities produce a disproportionately large share of cutting-edge ideas and research and have a major impact on our economic competitiveness. There's the example of Stanford, which helped to incubate Google and Yahoo and Cisco and Sun Microsystems and many other changing firms. There's the University of Texas in Austin, which has helped to create a high technology cluster that employs 100,000 people in 1,700 companies. There are the 8 great research universities in the Boston area, which in the year 2000 alone injected $7.4 billion into the local economy, generating 264 new patents and granting 200 licenses. It can happen there, it can happen anywhere. But in order for it to do so, we need to do 4 things. First, our governments need to continue to invest in basic and fundamental research, the backbone and foundation of innovation and competitiveness. And within that effort, in addition to our support of the natural sciences and health and engineering, we need to enhance our commitment to the research in our social sciences and humanities. I am reminded of Dr. Lee's underlining the importance of language, culture, and religious literacy, understanding the seeds of tension and cultural clash and terrorism, and the importance in investing in our broader research and knowledge base in what I like to call the human sciences. Second, we need to increase funding for graduate students, both domestic and international. If global universities are to create a sufficient number of high-quality personnel, we must invest, and invest heavily, in graduate studies. And if we are to compete in the world, we must all work to attract the smartest and the highest achieving graduate students from around the globe, to diversify our graduate student population. Graduate students bring energy and drive. They bring a different cultural and intellectual perspective, and they bring vital connections to and understanding of other parts of the world. We've heard it all morning long that this has been a large part of the success of what's happened in the United States. They have for generations attracted international graduate students from around the world. Some will return to their home countries with fond memories and excellent business contacts in the place they studied. These people are an essential investment in the future of an individual country, but also in the future of our world. If you review the development of the Silicon Valley, you will see the wisdom of such a strategy. International graduate students recruited to Stanford, Berkeley, Caltech, and UCLA have contributed significantly to the development of California and the United States. Third, we need to educate global citizens, individuals who have some comprehension of their roles, rights, and responsibilities as citizens of the world. If we are to succeed in providing the type of education Lee Kuan Yew desires for his grandson, we must embed the messages of citizenship and global responsibility in every course, in every specialty. And finally, we must, as global universities, connect or network with other like-minded global universities, such as the connections that the University of British Columbia shares with Korea University and other universities in this room. Countries like Canada and Korea are not going to stay ahead. We're not even going to keep up unless we have a permanent presence among the students, scientists, and researchers at places like the Indian Institutes of Technology, the top universities throughout Asia, and the international science hubs in places like California and Europe. We need to establish technology transfer offices in other countries and student exchange programs, and we need to build research infrastructure in international universities where Canadian and Korean students work side by side. Let me leave you with a picture, even though I use words to describe it. It is a picture of an individual who was portrayed in a recent issue of Business Week that focused on India and China, and I quote, "Rajendra Kumar Nayak considers himself a lucky guy, sipping his favorite 60-cent milkshake at a trendy coffee shop in Manipal, India. He's rejoicing about the job he'll start soon, following his recent graduation from the Manipal Institute of Technology. Nayak will work as an industrial engineer at Wipro Fluid Power in Bangalore for $390 a month, a lucrative salary by Indian standards. But Nayak, 22, isn't simply lucky. He's gutsy and he's smart. The son of a steel worker, he gambled in 2001 by taking out a $7,000 loan and heading to Manipal. 4 years later, he's graduating first in his class. MIT was expensive, but worth it, he says. Ambitious young people leading global universities. Just look around the world and understand the competition we all face. The world is changing, and we as educational leaders and business people must ensure that our institutions lead this change rather than respond to it. I say this as a retired university president on behalf of my faculty and students, but even more so, I say it on behalf of our children who will be facing an unimaginable world in 25 years. They deserve every advantage that we can secure in the meantime. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for a very insightful presentation. I suppose the globalization can be seen from various different perspectives, but the globalization can be seen as a phenomenon of the world becoming a small global village. And therefore, the emphasis on the good global citizenship is for everyone's best interest. In that regard, the present Piper's emphasis on teaching students to become a good global citizens, I think makes really sense. And I'm sure we'll have further discussion later on, but we really appreciate very much for the excellent presentation. Now let me invite President Pitte.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thanks a lot to the organizers for this important symposium. I'm afraid I'm the only French here in this room. There is another one, but he's representing Professor Ise, but he's representing China in this symposium. It's French people are 1% of the world population at the moment. It's nothing. 1 century ago, it was, I think, 5%. We are declining, and Korea is increasing. I'm very happy of this. Anyway, we have a global experience in France because we had a colonial empire, and our university, Sorbonne, has a long international history because during Middle Age, Sorbonne welcomed many students coming from everywhere in Europe. We were founded 750 years ago. Next year it's the anniversary, and we are very proud of this, but it's not enough to be proud of the old history. We have to have dignity of this history, and we have to renew completely our university system, our higher education in France, and it's a very hard job. Then I would like in a few words to speak about the strategies of world universities to cultivate talents in the global economy. I hope I can use this. Oh yes. Image of globalization is widely negative today among a part of the young people, of the intellectuals and academics in 3 continents, Europe, Africa and America. The most violent opposition, not everybody of course, but mostly, the most violent opposition, it is said, altermondialism, is encountered in the green political movements. They are very strong in Europe, as you know, as for example Greenpeace, and in the official position of the non-aligned countries. I wrote the official position, not, it's very complicated, the political situation of the non-aligned countries. Recently, the meeting was in La Habana with the strong figure of Fidel Castro, who has a special way of thinking the globalization. It's very surprising, since the failure of communism and the fall of mostly all the walls in the world, with the notable exception of the North Korean one, it proves one thing. It proves that ideologies resist strongly to reality. This is, unfortunately, I'm sorry, I think you have the text, but I'm not very familiar with this. I have to push twice.
You should click more to open the animation file.
Mm-hmm. Nothing is coming.
Go to Prompt.
Where is it?
That side.
Okay. Sorry, excuse me. No, nothing is coming. Yes? Yes? Yeah, they have my text. Then, this is unfortunately a common law in the human history. The probable reason of the ideological orientation of academics and the students, often very isolated from the economic and social life and living in a dream ideal world. This is true for Europe and mostly France. This is true also for some American academics. This is true also for African academics. And they believe generally that egalitarianism is better than equality of chances. This is a big debate in France, mainly this year, because next year, maybe you know, we have the presidential election, and many people are still thinking about the egalitarianism. Everybody has to be equal, but equal means in real democracy equality of chances, not equality of everybody, because some are working, some are not working, and I think to speak about equality is quite dangerous. Soviet Union spoke also for a long time about equality, and it was not a big success. In Asia, and particularly in China and India, it means 40% of the population of the world, academics and students are less involved in such an alternative movement, even if China remains dominated by the strange way of communism, paradoxically encouraging capitalism and personal enrichment. I will show you now opinion poll realized by Globscan Institute for the Michigan University last year, and this is a good view of the situation. Sorry, excuse me. This is the poll. And the question was, are the free enterprise and market economy the best economic systems? And you have the percentage of response. You see that Korea, which is the fourth one from the bottom, in Korea, most of the people think that 70% of the people think that the free enterprise and the market economy is the best economic system. But you see France on the top. The top, it means that only 36% of the population believes that the free enterprise and market economy is a good system. And 50% of the population believes it's not a good system. And it's more if you ask the question to the academics and to the students. Maybe it's 70%, maybe 80%. This is a crazy situation because France is not a communist country. France is a liberal country. But this is the reality. And the gap between the main opinion of the French population and the reality of economy, as you know probably, France is the fifth country in the world for economy, and most of the population believes that free enterprise and market is a bad system. This is one of the big problems of France, but you can see that there are also some European countries on the top, in the top of the design. For example, in Italy you have Kenya, but you have also Poland. And if you are looking to the bottom, you have many. There is not Japan, but probably Japan has the same result as Korea. You have China. China, 74%. It's a communist country. 74% of the population believes that the market is good. This poll is absolutely crazy. But many politics, when they discovered this in the newspapers a few months ago in France, many politics were completely astonished by the results. Another amazing vision of globalization is the Huntington one. It means that yes, thank you. The ineluctable clash of civilizations, the increasing power of China and Islam, the strong identity wish of many societies seems to threat Western countries and to open the way to a third world war. Conflicts are not only perceived between geographical zones or countries or even regions, but inside the countries, inside the cities. Minorities are sometimes ferments of resistance to nations. For example, in London, there is the suburbs of London named Londonistan, because there are many Pakistanis and people coming from Middle East and very strongly Muslims, and they don't want to become British, but they live in Britain and they live in London, in one of the world cities. Or in Paris, maybe you have read in the newspapers last year, 1 year ago, we had many problems in the suburbs with many cars burnt and buses also. There are clearly, nearly outlaw zones populated by frustrated Islamic minorities coming from Middle East or North Africa, often unemployed, absolutely rebellious to integration, fusion or assimilation. The worst response to such a problem is encouragement to communitarism. It's a response in France, in many European countries and also in states. It's difficult to understand why such an ideology is now quite popular in our countries. The first country was for a long time, states, a defender of the melting pot. When I was a student in geography, we learned very clearly that states is the country of melting pot. Is it still true today? And the second country, France, is the country which invented the concept of nation with a mixture of population coming from many regions speaking different languages and also from overseas countries. During the First World War, many North African Arabic people and black African came in France and fought against the Germanic invasion. And we spoke so much about the nation. In the French cemeteries, there are Muslims, there are Jewish, there are people coming from everywhere in the world who died for the nation France. And today, we are promoting the communitarism. This is absolutely, it's a kind of suicide, I think. There is something true, of course, in the Huntington point of view, but the danger is to consider this clash or these clashes as ineluctable. Nothing is so in history, and if the danger exists, simplification is also dangerous. Instead of this, we have to believe there are solutions and promote them. Of course, in case of military or terrorist strong risk, the only response is the closed boundary. That's why your DMZ in Korea, between South and North Korea, or the Israelo-Palestinian wall are, unfortunately, and I insist on the word unfortunately, a necessity, absolute necessity today. Against the two ideological dangers, altermondialism and communitarism, threatening the world, one is socio-economic, the other is identitary, but also economic. Education is the good way, the only good way, and especially higher education. The problem of many countries is inadequation between education, higher education, and employment market. This is our problem in France, and we try to reform at the moment, particularly also in some other European countries, mainly if we compare to some OECD countries. And look at this graphic, and you will see unemployment, the rate of unemployment in some European and OECD country. There is not Korea on this design, but you see that France has not a very good rate on the last one, on the bottom of the graphic, with 9.2% of young people unemployed. And young people, it means between 15 and 25 years, except the students, of course. It means the young people who are not students in universities. The same in, 21, I'm sorry, not 9 is the rate of unemployment general, and 21 is the rate of the young. It's terrible. 20%, more than 20% of young people unemployed. It's because, of course, they have been students, but not in the good place, and they have not the good way of thinking to come in easily in a company and to find a job when they finish with a diploma from university. We have the same result, and worse, even worse, in Italy, 24%. And in Germany, it's not, and also in Spain. In Germany, it's less, 15%. In the United Kingdom, as you know, the politics of Mrs. Thatcher and of Mr. Blair changed completely the academic system, and now only 13% of the young people are unemployed. This is too much, but better than in France. And if you look at states in Japan, on the top, you have 11% in Japan and 10.7% in states. I think it's quite the same in Korea, no more than 10%. This is normal. 10% is nothing because there is a period of change between the academic period and the employment periods. One of the problems is the insufficient orientation in technical and professional universities. This is the European problem. In states, in many countries, there is a hierarchy of universities. There are the top universities, research universities, as British Columbia, for example, or Koryo University, or many other universities in the world represented here, but, and also my university. But in France, we have no hierarchy. All the students can come in university without selection. And a large part of the students would have to go in technical universities, but they don't go because nobody says them, you're not good to go in a research university. You have to go in a technical and it will be good for you because you will find a job when you finish. Then they are coming in many domains as law, economy, management, letters, humanities, social science, psychology. And the problem is if you are very good, even if you are a psychologist, an archaeologist, a Latinist, a geographer as I am, if you are top level, you find a job, even in a company, and your job has no direct relation with the domain, the field you have been studying at university. But if you are of low level, you can't find a job with such a field. And this is the problem. It's because we have no courage in our country and in many countries in Europe and in the world to say to the young people, what is your level? In function of your level, you will be accepted in this university and you are sure to find a job. And if during you are a student, you become better, maybe you can change and you can go in another university, another field, but not at the beginning, anybody, anywhere. This is the false democracy. This is the result of no selection. The next one, please. You have here some statistics about the rate of adults with higher education in the OECD countries. And you can see on this graphic that Korea is very good with 18.5% of adults with higher education. In France, only 12%. And 12 not completely adapted to the market, the working market. And on the second graphic on the right side, you have the annual expense per student. This is very important. I think we don't spend enough money for academic life. Korea, you spend $6,600 a year per student. France, $8,800, but compare to states. In states, the country, it means the state, the companies, but also the families, spend $22,000 per student. It means 3 times the amount of Korea or France. And you have many countries where even not so rich, where the money spent for the students are more important than in some rich countries of Europe. This is a big problem. We don't spend enough money. But of course, money is not enough. But if there is a good orientation of the students and enough money, it's possible to have a good link between the market and the formation. You know, in France, 1,100,000 students are in non-technical universities, you know, in sciences, in law, political science, in economy, in humanities, and 4% in sport. It's too much. What to do with a diploma in sport? Nothing. Most of them are unemployed. And this is a problem because nobody dares to say to the students, you are a good sportsman, but you're not necessarily a good sport professor. And this is the problem of demagogy. I have to say, I'm sorry to criticize my country in your country, but I have to say, because this is a reality, and I hope you will tell very strongly to my government, because we want to change absolutely, as our colleague coming from Japan this morning, who criticized the Japanese government on the academic system. I want also to criticize not my government today, but all the governments of France since the last World War. We didn't dare to say the reality to the young people. Why? Because when the politics say the reality, 1 million students are going in the streets, as we had in the last month of March in France, for just a small law, very small law, 1 million students in the streets. Then all the politics are absolutely afraid by any change in the system. Massification of higher education is not enough. It's not a good solution if the quality is decreasing, as you can see here. I have no time because I think my time is over now. No time to comment this graphic, but you will have in the complete text if you want. Here you have this is a French paradox. On this graphic you can see that France spends less money for the students of university than for the pupils at school. This is crazy, but this is the French reality. We spend a lot of money for pupils at school or high school and not enough for university. We have also another problem in France, is the separation between grandes écoles. It means special universities with selection. Most of them are private, but not all of them. And the universities with no selection. Then what to do to reform? This is my conclusion. First, there are three conclusions. First, we have to enforce links. It's not only true for France, but also for Korea and for all the countries in the world, with real life, mainly enterprises. Universities are not only made for the preparation of recruitment competitions of civil servants. More place for businessmen in administration and boards of universities. You have this system in Korea, but we have all of us to enforce this, because the companies win money and the company give jobs to the students. Then they have to give their opinion on the system of formation, on the programs, and in France they don't do it because nobody asks for them. We have to balance between public and private financement, and what is important is that the students pay. In France, universities are free of charge. This is a crazy system, absolutely anti-democratic. Many people say, oh, it's very democratic, no fees, but in reality, the children coming from wealthy family find very, very easily the good system to find a job at the end. And of course, we have to create in our universities training offices, employment agencies. We will create in our university an employment agency, and companies, creation agencies inside the university. Second conclusion, we have to facilitate students' mobility among foreign universities and foreign companies. We have to enforce links between universities, mainly world universities. We have not enough links. For example, we have the Erasmus system in Europe, but my university has very, very few links with the two oldest universities in Europe, two of the oldest universities in Europe, I mean Cambridge and Oxford. We have personal relations, but not official. This is crazy. Only 300 kilometers between Paris and Oxford. We have to facilitate exchange of academic symposium, as this one, common researchers. We have to encourage also, this is very, very important, foreign languages learning. A 21st century manager must speak 3 languages at least. This is not the case in France. I think this is not the case in Korea, even if all the managers speak English, but only 2 languages. And this is not the case in states. Many, many managers in state, from the politics to the economy, they speak only 1 language, the Anglo-American English. It's not enough. I think it's very, very important that all the managers speak 2 at least, but 3 is better languages. And third and last conclusion, it's not a conclusion, it's just a few, but I have no time to develop about Paris Sorbonne University. My university, we try to enforce our international bureau. We have opened last month an annex in Abu Dhabi in the Emirates, and it's very important because we are in the heart of the Arabic world, and we learn in French in this annex humanities, And these demands come from the government of Emirates, and we are very proud of this. And why not one day in Korea or everywhere? If Koreans want to open an annex, if the Investicorio want to open an annex in Paris, you're welcome. And we have to create also a fundraising association. We created this year, and we Europeanized our diplomas. Thank you very much. I'm a little bit too long. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you very much, President Pitte, for a very interesting presentation on particularly the French educational system. It's very interesting. You distinguished the equality in outcome and the equality in opportunity. I suppose this is a very, very critical issue we have to face in making not only education policies but economic policies. Equality opportunities may produce different outcome and different results. But if you go for egalitarianism, what you can say, which emphasizes equality in results and outcome, the society will lose out in this age of globalization. I think that's what one of the implication President Pitt, President Pitt's presentation. Second point is the currently there are two contending views. One is Francis Fukuyama's the end of history view, and the other one is Samuel Huntington's the clash of civilizations view. Today we have all this, after 9/11 we have the Iraqi war and the major terrorist attacks in Spain and UK, and as if the Huntington's clash of civilization view more correctly describe the world affairs and social order. But according to Francis Fukuyama, who spoke this morning, will still argue that that is not the case, and it has more to do with bad policies and bad institutions, and the absolute poverty prevailing in that particular segment of the world, which incite terrorism and also. So it's not necessarily the civilization as such which divide the world. And in this context, it's again this public policy agenda, including education policy, is very important to produce global citizen and to have to cultivate human nature which would cooperate and work together for the global prosperity. And Francis Fukuyama believes in the human nature, which is basically socializing, and therefore once you have the right institutions, the right policies, the world will have the proper social order. In any case, I thought it's very interesting you bring out this Samuel's, the Huntington's view, as well as this some of the globalization issues. Well, since we are running out of time, and we have the President who is the last speaker, but not the least speaker. Please.
죄송합니다. 예. 제가 원고를 영어로 만들어 왔는데, 이게 사실은 많은 분들이 한국 분이기 때문에 우리말하고 영어로 번역하는 게 더 효율적일 것 같은데, 통역하는 사람이 그렇게 하면 일이 잘 안 될 것 같아서 준비한 원고를 가지고 말씀을 드리도록 하겠습니다. 한 1년 전에 골드만삭스에서 발표를 하면서 2025년, 지금부터 한 19년 정도 지나고 나서 1인당 한국의 국민소득이 현재 값어치로 52,000불, 된다고 했습니다. 믿을 숫자는 아닙니다만 굉장히 즐거운 소리라서 말씀을 드리면은 미국, 일본 다음에 한국이 3위가 됩니다. 그러면은 지금 20대 대학교에서 공부를 하고 있는 학생들이 20년 지나 40이 됐을 때 우리나라가 전 세계에서 3위가 되는 국가의 국민이 되고 이 사람들이 사회적인 리더가 되겠습니다. 그렇다고 가정한다 그러면 지금 우리나라 대학교에서 교육하고 있는 사람들은 정말 글로벌 리더가 되지 않으면 안 된다. 세계적인 리더가 되지 않으면 안 된다 하는 이런 각오에서 우리나라 대학생들을 길러야 된다 하는 생각을 갖고 있습니다. 그래서 고려대학교에서는 지난 몇 년 동안에 그동안은 국내 리더를 양성하던 사람을 목표를 바꿔서 어떻게 하면 글로벌 리더를 만들 수 있을까 하는 이런 측면에서 교육 프로그램을 완전히 바꿨습니다. 여러 가지 학내에 마찰도 있고 합니다만 사회적으로 많은 좋은 평판을 얻고 있는 것 같습니다. 그런 의미에서 지금 고대에서 하고 있는 그 글로벌 리더를 양성하기 위한 프로그램을 설명하는 걸 가지고 제가 오늘 원고를 만들었습니다. Former Prime Minister of Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew, whom Martha Piper mentioned already, he is quite an important person in this mission, said global talents are the key for success in a lecture he delivered at Korea University last May. He emphasized the importance of nurturing global talent and international cooperation among universities. He contended that being a global university means to combine students and faculty who can exhibit the best of their abilities, a globalized curriculum, openness, and progressive spirit, and that universities should exert themselves on nurturing global talent. Global talent is cultivated through education. Former US President John F. Kennedy spoke out the goal of education. He said, the goal of education is the advancement of knowledge and dissemination of truth. What about goal of higher education is Toblerone global era? In the same token, the goal of higher education is the advancement of higher knowledge and dissemination of global talent. The advancement of knowledge and dissemination of talent are now core functions of organization in the dynamic of global business environment. Today, organizations including business and industries, central and local governments, and college and university find it very difficult to locate the right people for the right position at right time. If we were successful in creating global talent pool, this can offer a win-win situation to all involved, including supply side, demand side, as well as the talents. If we succeed in creating global talent pool, the best and most highly valued candidates for positions such as managers, scientists, and engineers may be available at the click of computer mouse. It is not easy to create a database for global talent pool available all over the world by the institutional framework. This requires collaborative efforts from colleges and universities, business and industry, and central and local government. In order to create global talent pool, a global talent pool index, maybe we call it the global talent input-out table or global talent bank, to be formulated in advance. In order to create such an index, first we need to designate the criteria of the pool. Should we limit the range to scientist pool, engineer pool, or manager pool? Or should the pool be one that includes all encompassing high-tech, high-touch human-wear pool? We also need to conduct empirical research as to what kind of global talents are needed in both quantitatively and qualitative aspects. In doing so, we can create an index of supply and demand of highly valuable talent by examining the impacts of economic, technological, and demographic change in this borderless environment of the world workplace and workforce, we can create an index to foster highly qualified talents. Therefore, I would like to suggest what we work together to create an index pool. First, so that this can serve as foundation upon which a superstructure can be built. From the perspective of SPRISide, we are challenged not only by foreign universities, but also by domestic and multinational employers. We in Korea have been blamed by business and industry for failing to educate college graduates to meet the demands of society. Therefore, the improvement of qualitative requirements by prospective employers should be precisely assessed in order to formulate a global talent pool index. This index should be reflected in the higher education curriculum. For example, we have to carefully examine how world-class universities have been reforming their institution to produce global talent in an innovative process before creating global talent pool index. As for the supply side of global talent pool, universities need to globalize their faculties and staffs, programs and student curriculum and facilities. Let me share with you how these four elements are shaped in the global context at our university, Korea University. Regarding faculties and staffs, Korea University is requiring all newly hired faculty to teach in English or second foreign language except in Korean studies and law. Selected administrative staffs are providing support and training to faculty who teach in the foreign language. Our selected administrative staff have developed customized service through the benchmarking of services world-class universities. When Anna Whitfield of London Financial Times interviewed me last July, I said, we have to invite foreign service providers to Korea to increase the competitiveness of our service sector. We can't create a competitive edge if there are no competition. In order to globalize the university campus, it is essential for utilize world's increasingly integrated pool for high-end talent. For example, we invited international professors to teach at Korea University's International Summer Campus, in which domestic and international students took content-based courses taught in English. Last year, we had more than 800 American university students to attend this summer campus program, largest in Asia. The invited lecturers this year included Paul Bloom, a psychology professor at Yale University, and Trevor Pinch, a sociology professor at Cornell University. Regarding programs and students, the emergency of global economy and increasing challenges to improve the quality of higher education graduates are changing the campus of college and university in Korea. In order to meet needs of clients, we are changing faster than ever before. We are sending about 1,000 students each year to various campuses in foreign countries, including UBC. It means we are sending around 20% of our students abroad with a scholarship provided by Korea University. Whether they are in Tokyo or London, or Singapore or Vancouver, they are Korea University students who have been empowered by global learning. In an effort to produce global talent, we have been reforming program through the rapid adoption of English as instructional language of the classroom. About a third of all classes across the board, across the university, are conducted in English, 35%. This was a dramatic increase from only 5% when I took over as president 4 years ago. We are going to increase the rate to 60% by year 2010 by requiring all newly hired faculty to teach in English. Globalized talent is especially important for companies and government that do business abroad. While English is regarded as the de facto language of international business, customers naturally prefer to use their own native language. Therefore, second foreign language educated should also be considered and made into an advantage. For the globalization of campus, Korea University launched International Summer Campus in 2004. The program had about 280 students in 2004 and 475 in 2005. This year, as I mentioned, 961 students from 150 schools across 11 nations attended. The program, which started as part of Global KU, Korea University, project in 2004 to commemorate the school's centenary anniversary, currently offer around 100 courses in such a field such as political science, economics, sociology, as well as Korean studies. Students go on field trip to places such companies like Samsung Electronics. Some are also attending special lecture by notable experts in Korea like SaKong or YoonDae, the former Information and Communication Minister. Another program that I want to share with you is Trilateral Asia MBA program. Since the center of the world economy is moving toward Asia, Korea University, the National University of Singapore, and Fudan University of China are establishing a Trilateral Asia MBA program. This MBA program among regional countries of Asia will commence as early as next fall. The Asia MBA is trying to take advantage of its university strengths as much as possible and to create synergy effects. Korea University will lead the business education field, Fudan University will lead bioscience research field, and Singapore National University will lead financial science research field. Regarding curriculum should be practical to produce global talent. Korea University requires all finance MBA students to do an internship. Through exchange of student program, foreign students have the opportunity to intern with Korean enterprises, while Korean students can go to distinguished business school abroad as exchange students. Moreover, the program supports extending the length of study for dual degree if a student wishes to do so. For our students who are studying foreign language such as French, German, or Russian, one should go abroad where those foreign languages are spoken. For example, French major students should go either Spain or Latin American country to study in Latin America. Those students who are studying Russian will go to Russia, such as Moscow National University or other university in Russia. Regarding facilities, General Motors Daewoo selected Korea University as its partner university in an International Economic Industry Cooperation sport program called Partners for Advancement of Collaborative Engineering Program, PACE program, and decided to provide around $186 million worth of software and hardware. PACE, initiated in 1999, is International Academic Industry Cooperation Support Program jointly operated by General Motors, EDS, Sun Microsystem, etc. A large-scale joint project is being carried out within a unique program GM Daewoo developed with Korea University. On May 4th, 2006, this year, the opening ceremony of Korea University Space Center at the KU Engineering Building was held. As for housing, We have built dormitories home and abroad. We have overseas dormitory in Canada at UBC under the leadership of Martha Piper, England at London University, and China at Renmin University for our students. On campus, we operate CJ International House, which is residence solely for foreign students and faculty. Another important critical key actor is employer, including domestic and multinational business and industry. Employers who are on the demand side of global talent pool want more effective, creative, competent, and globalized higher education graduates. An additional criteria key actor to the global talent pool is the government. In any country, the government has enormous impact on shaping the talents of a nation. The government needs to help its people to identify competence level of their skills. For special areas of talent, such as pool may influence national security. This is why the government has to be accountable for providing necessary funds to create global talent pool index. To produce global talent, we need to invest tremendous amount of funds into development of faculty, staff, student program, curriculum, etc. The governmental budget allocated to higher education in Korea is insignificant. Compared to OECD country, whose average is 1% of GNP, this country government is providing us with only half of them, while their control is hardest in the world. Although the expansion of government support is absolutely necessary, it is not essentially the most effective solution. Higher education is also responsible for providing continuing education and training to bridge the gap derived from demand to further enhance and maintain these talents at the global level. Higher educational institutions need to interact with employers to identify continuing educational needs of their talents based on industry needs analysis. Educational infrastructure and technical facility together with curriculum should be innovated. Higher educational institutions are also keenly required to interact with government to reform educational system to maintain the nation's leading edge. Both industry and government need to provide feedback on the requisite of talent to higher education institutions. In addition, higher educational institutions need to maintain their relationship with foreign counterpart partners to maintain their global significance. As we move ahead further into 21st century, Korean higher education institutions should be well positioned in this highly fluid period in the world history. To maintain a preeminent competitive edge, we need to cultivate our students so that they are equipped with creative leadership skill to navigate their way in the global talent pool. To meet this challenge, we need to create global talent pool mechanism that is a collaboration among business, industry, government, and global community. I just read very fast. I'm sorry whether my communication is enough for you to understand. Thank you very much.